In a city of shadows, Min-jun lived a lie of love to save Eun-ji from a cruel disease. But his criminal acts, meant to be her salvation, only led her to the horrifying truth. Her discovery set in motion a chain of events that proved not all truths are meant to be revealed. And now, justice has finally come for the Black Dragon, but at a price no one could have ever foreseen.
Min-jun's world was a carefully constructed fiction, a decade-long performance for an audience of one. The stage was their small, sunlit apartment, the costume a threadbare suit he donned each morning. The curtain rose as he kissed Eun-ji goodbye, heading not to a sterile office building, but to a world of shadows and steel. He was the feared leader of the Black Dragons, his name whispered in the city's underbelly, his influence stretching from the high-rises to the back alleys. But to Eun-ji, a kind-hearted nurse with a gentle spirit, he was just Min-jun, her loving partner, the man who worked a tedious but honest job to provide for their life together. This fragile peace was shattered by a diagnosis, an aggressive, rare form of leukemia. The sterile scent of the hospital now clung to his clothes, a constant reminder of the two worlds he inhabited. His strong, calloused hands that had made men cower, now trembled as he held Eun-ji's, her skin so delicate and pale. She was a beacon of light in his life of darkness, a truth he cherished within a mountain of lies. Her smile, thin and weary, was his greatest treasure, and he would do anything to keep it from fading. "Don't worry, Min-jun," she whispered, her voice barely a breath. "The doctor said there's a chance, a new experimental drug." Her words were a single radiant star in the oppressive gloom of the hospital room. He nodded, squeezing her hand, his throat tight with a lie he had to keep. The doctors had already delivered the grim truth to him in private. The drug was a long shot, a Hail Mary pass in a game already lost, and its cost was staggering. A price that an ordinary office worker, the man he pretended to be, could never dream of affording. His life was a paradox. He was a man of immense power and wealth, yet he was utterly powerless to save the one person who mattered. His wealth was built on a foundation he knew would destroy her if she ever saw it. So he maintained the facade, a decade-long web of deceit. It wasn't about hiding from her, it was about protecting her. He wanted her to live a life of peace and normalcy, a life that was free from the brutal reality of his world, a life he could never truly have for himself. He had made his choice long ago, trading his soul for her happiness. Seeing her hopeful face, her eyes shining with a love that had become his sole reason for existence, the compassion he felt was a heavy, painful weight in his chest. It was a physical ache, a searing reminder of the impossible choices he had made. The lie he lived was no longer a matter of convenience. It was a matter of life and death. He would do anything to turn that flicker of hope in her eyes into a roaring flame, even if it meant sacrificing every last piece of the man she thought he was. He would descend back into the darkness he had so carefully kept hidden from her, all to make her one last beautiful dream come true. His love for Eun-ji became a catalyst, transforming Min-jun back into the ruthless leader he had so carefully tried to bury. The lie he lived, once a shield to protect her, was now his most powerful weapon. It allowed him to move between worlds, a ghost in the shadows and a gentle partner in the light. To an outsider, he was a man lost in a web of deceit, but to him, it was a lifeline. He wasn't simply a gangster, he was a desperate lover fighting for his beloved's life. Min-jun threw himself into his work with a ferocity that even his men hadn't seen before. He called in favors that were a decade old, leveraged debts that were long forgotten, and mobilized his entire organization. The price of the experimental drug was an astronomical sum, a figure that would crush any ordinary person. However, the Black Dragon clan had the means, and Min-jun was prepared to use every resource at his disposal. He initiated a series of high-stakes operations, moving from illegal gambling raids to back-alley deals and ruthless negotiations with rival gangs. The more money he amassed, the more he distanced himself from the gentle, loving man Eun-ji knew. In the dead of night, he was a ruthless leader, a fearsome presence, but during the day, he was a desperate lover, a man willing to sacrifice everything for the one he adored. Meanwhile, a fragile but powerful hope began to bloom in Eun-ji's heart. The first rounds of the new drug showed promising results. Her pale skin started to regain its color, and her tired eyes began to shine with renewed light. She was getting stronger, her smile brighter than ever before. Hope was a powerful healer, and with each passing day, she found herself planning their future, talking about a small house with a garden and even the possibility of a child. "We'll be so happy, Min-jun," she said one evening, snuggling close to him, completely unaware of the battles he was fighting to make her dreams a reality. "Everything will be perfect." The lie he had so meticulously crafted had now become her future, her hope. She saw only the man she loved, the man who was fighting for her. She was blind to the dark circles under his eyes, the new scars on his knuckles, or the subtle shift in his demeanor. She was caught in a whirlwind of hope and joy, and she couldn't see the storm raging just beyond her sight. His hope, her life, and his secret, her salvation. The emotional roller coaster had begun, and the initial fear that had consumed them was replaced by a fragile, soaring hope that everything might just work out. It was a beautiful, dangerous illusion, and they were both trapped within it. The world for Eun-ji was a canvas of light and possibility, painted in vibrant strokes of hope. The experimental drug was working. She was getting better. She felt a surge of strength coursing through her veins. A life she thought had been stolen from her was now returning. One rainy evening, the sky mirroring her joyful tears, she decided to surprise Min-jun. A small gesture of gratitude, a token of her love for the man she believed had worked tirelessly to save her. She knew the general area of his office from his vague descriptions, and, feeling a sense of adventure, she decided to walk there herself, her heart pounding with a mix of excitement and a renewed zest for life. She followed his familiar route, a route he had walked 1,000 times, each step a further entanglement in the lie he lived. As she approached the address, a sense of confusion washed over her. It was not an office building, but a deserted, rain-slicked warehouse, its windows dark and forbidding. The joyous anticipation, however, quickly turned to a cold, suffocating dread. She heard muffled sounds coming from inside, not the hum of computers and chatter of colleagues, but sharp, angry voices and a low, guttural roar. Driven by a fear that had replaced her hope, she crept closer, her trembling fingers finding a narrow crack in the metal door. What she saw on the other side was not the world of spreadsheets and office politics she had imagined, but a scene of brutal, horrifying violence. Min-jun, her gentle, loving partner, was there, his face cold and impassive, a terrifying mask of control she had never seen. He was barking orders at a group of men, his voice a chilling command in the tense silence. One of the men was bleeding, a crimson stain spreading across his clothes. The man she knew was an illusion. The man she saw was a monster. His strong, calloused hands were now stained with the truth, a truth that felt more tangible and terrifying than any disease. A cold, metallic glint caught her eye as he adjusted a gun tucked into his waistband. Above them, a black dragon was emblazoned on a banner, a symbol of the clan he led, the symbol of her horrifying revelation. The truth she found was a bitter, shocking reality. The medical bills, the sudden influx of money, the late nights, the weary look in his eyes, it all made a horrifying kind of sense. He had not been working to save her. He had been fighting, killing, and stealing to pay for her cure. The shock was a physical blow, a wave of nausea washing over her. She stumbled back, a scream caught in her throat. Her fragile health, her newfound strength, her beautiful hope, all of it forgotten in the face of this terrifying betrayal. She was not a survivor of a disease. She was a trophy, a symbol of his brutality. The man she loved, the man who was supposed to be her future, was a monster, and his love, she now realized, was just another lie.
The fragile world of their shared hope and love shattered the moment Eun-ji confronted Min-jun. The man she once adored now stood before her, not as her loving partner, but as a ghost of the horrifying truth she had uncovered. Her voice, which had been so soft and gentle, now trembled not with weakness, but with a searing rage he had never heard before. Her eyes, once filled with a pure, unwavering love, now blazed with a fury that felt like a physical force. "The lie you lived, it's what's killing me," she spat, each word a venomous arrow aimed directly at his heart. Her anger was a complex and suffocating mix of betrayal and self-loathing. How could she have been so blind, so foolish? She, a nurse dedicated to saving lives, had been unknowingly sustained by a man who took them. Her love, the very thing that had anchored her, that had given her the strength to fight her illness, was built on a foundation of blood and crime. The man she thought she knew was a phantom, and her own beautiful memories with him now felt tainted, a cruel mockery. Min-jun, for his part, tried to explain. He tried to justify his actions, to tell her that it was all for her, to save her. He spoke of the impossible choices he had to make, of the love that had driven him to such extreme measures. But his words were meaningless against the raw fury in her eyes. His explanations, his apologies, and his pleas were all futile. They were just more lies, more layers of the deception that had suffocated her. "You stole my life, Min-jun," she cried, her voice cracking with the unbearable weight of her realization. "I thought I was healing, but I was just a pawn in your twisted game. My recovery, my hope, my future, it was all paid for with someone else's suffering. The experimental drug, the very thing that had brought her back from the brink, now felt like a chain, a constant, sickening reminder of the bloody price of her life. She was a living testament to his brutality, a monument to the violence he had unleashed. The joy she had felt was a hollow echo, replaced by a profound and bitter disgust. The anger she felt was a cleansing fire, burning away her love and leaving behind only a hollow shell of a woman. She rejected his touch, his apologies, his very existence. He had not saved her, he had enslaved her, trapping her in a life she now despised, a life built on a lie she could never forget. Driven by a rage that had consumed her very soul, Eun-ji did the unthinkable. The woman who had once been a beacon of kindness and compassion now sought justice, not for herself, but to dismantle the very foundation of the lie she had lived. She went to the police, not with a complete account of Min-jun's criminal empire, but with something far more damning, a discarded ledger she had found, filled with enough evidence to cripple the Black Dragon's operations. She believed that by doing this, she was taking back her life, reclaiming the dignity that Min-jun's love, a love built on a foundation of deceit and violence, had stolen from her. She thought her actions were an act of defiance, a way to escape from the prison of his lie. But in the cold, unforgiving world of the city's criminal underbelly, such actions have dire and often fatal consequences. The rival gangs, ever watchful, saw an opportunity in the chaos. They didn't need to know the full story, they only needed to know that the Black Dragons were vulnerable. They quickly pieced together the identity of the snitch who had brought down their rivals, a name whispered in the shadows, a name that was now a target. On the day of her final, successful treatment, Eun-ji walked out of the hospital with a triumphant smile on her face. Her body was free from the disease, her spirit was unburdened by the lie, and a new life, a true life, was just beginning.
She was met not by Min-jun, but by a car full of his rivals, their faces cold and expressionless. The life they lost was the life they could have had, a life of peace and normalcy. It was a life that was now irrevocably gone. Min-jun arrived just moments too late. The air was thick with the scent of rain and a metallic tang that made his heart plummet. He found her lying on the ground, a single bullet wound in her chest, a cruel, final act in a tragedy he had written himself. The tragic irony was a bitter, unbearable truth. She was now cured, her body free from the disease that had plagued her, but her life was gone. He knelt beside her, his hands trembling as he gently took a bloody ledger from her lifeless grip, the very evidence she had used to seek her freedom. He had saved her body, but in doing so, he had destroyed her life and, in turn, his own. The life they had lost was a direct consequence of the lie he lived and the truth she found, a devastating storm of his own making. As he held her, the cold rain washing away the blood on his hands, he was left with nothing but the silence of the city and the crushing weight of a love that had cost them everything.